We got breaking news, Fink. You ready for this?
I just got a buzz on my Apple Watch, so I haven't looked.
Here you go. I'll tell you what the buzz is. And I think if you're an ACC football fan, which we both are, pretty
Is it?
significant news.
Is
Pretty
it?
significant news to your Florida State Seminoles.
Is it James Franklin?
James Franklin has agreed to become the next head coach of the Virginia Tech Hokies, who Miami plays this weekend. 128 wins over 15 seasons as head coach at Vanderbilt and Penn State, led Penn State to the college football playoffs, semifinals last year. I think this is beyond a home run for Virginia Tech. Obviously, growing like I spent a lot of time. I grew up in South Florida, but I spent a lot of time in Baltimore, in Washington D.C. Right, so I was able to see what the fan base is like out there, and kind of the makeup of it as a college football community, and they are very much either Virginia Tech fans or Penn State fans. There's a lot of overlap. You get some Maryland fans in there as well, but the overlap between Penn State and Virginia Tech and the recruiting basis is huge. I think James Franklin is, to me, one of the absolute, legit top 5 coaches in college football. I know it's a hot take, but when you look at the wins, when you look at what he did at Vanderbilt, 9 wins at Vanderbilt twice, and then doing what he did at Penn State, the amount of professionals, and I'm talking about 7th round picks, first, second round picks that he's put out, the freaks of nature that he's found that were not 5-star players or maybe low 4-star, high 3-star players that turned into first round picks. Outstanding. So to me, this is a home run for Virginia Tech. Tough break for Florida State. You heard that Florida State wanted James Franklin, or at least that was the rumor, and he was looking at them. They beat Virginia Tech. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, with keeping Norvell, but it was, a lot of people thought it was the Franklin Bowl, and the loser really won, or the winner really lost. I see you reacting with a lot of negativity as a Florida State fan. So tell me, it seems like you felt like we might have lost the Franklin Bowl.
Yeah, I mean they definitely did. I mean, man, yeah. This is when I look at my realistic FSU hot board. We're not throwing Lane Kiffin on there. Lane Kiffin's not coming to FSU. Nick Saban, whatever. I think it's James Franklin tier 1, and then honestly, there's not a tier 1.5. Might not be a tier 2. Like, I think there is a gap, in my opinion, for what FSU needs. And I say this as if he's still on the open market, because clearly he's not. Because clearly FSU dropped the ball on this one. Thankfully, they got to 5-5 by beating Virginia Tech. Surely this won't be a game they regret in the future. But oh my gosh, yeah, you need stability in this program. And what does he bring? Stability. Does he bring a national championship upside? Maybe in the ACC, but probably not, just based on what he's shown throughout his career. But maybe in the ACC, he certainly brings college football playoff appearance upside. What will he do at that point? But ultimately, what is the floor with Franklin? 8-4, or and then go to a bowl game? Like, he's not. I just do not think that a guy who has this much experience compared to a guy at this level, compared to a guy like Norvell, he. I don't know how he even went 2-10, but like, he's not going to go 2-10. Obviously, the floor for a Franklin would be worlds higher than Norvell. So yeah, that's embarrassing. I think, to be honest, I think that's an indictment on the athletic director. I know I came on here the morning that they put out the statement, the day after, or the Monday after the Stanford game, and it was like 20 minutes after. And I said that I think the athletic director fired himself in that moment by putting out that statement. I think this is the nail in the coffin. I think I probably said that at the time, but this is truly the nail in the coffin. Because if he's fired right now, how many different national college football reporters have put out that James Franklin was waiting for FSU to open up? It seems like that was true from my understanding. And Virginia Tech kind of told him, like, hey, man, this is your last weekend. We're not going to wait it out any longer. And ultimately, yeah, if FSU lost on Saturday, they probably fire Norvell because they probably recognize this situation, and they recognize. I would hope they recognize that James Franklin is who they need to hire. But oh my gosh, so unserious, so unserious.
Fink is going through it. So here, let's before I give more of the Virginia Tech perspective, I want to stick on FSU because these were tied together. I see your reaction. I see the feeling. So where does FSU go now with Franklin off the board?
I think the first call needs to be Sumrall, but I would be stunned if Sumrall. I mean, he's not too far off of all the Saban and Jimbo and guys in that category. He's see that's what sucks is like we get into the kind of I don't want to say gimmicky, but I kind of throw Nick Saban, Jimbo, Ed O, Dion. Dion's a current coach, but like Dion obviously is not having the season we hoped this year, and honestly doesn't look like a guy that I would want to hire. So, and he's a former player, so that's kind of a gimmicky. But we get past this, like, who else is realistic? Like, Drinkwitz isn't probably gonna. I don't think Drinkwitz would come here. I don't know why he would. Right? Missouri's probably a better job than FSU, just from what he's turned it into, at least.
Yeah, you think Penn State if he were to
Yeah,
move
yeah.
along. Now look, Florida State's won what 3 championships since Penn State won their last one. So I don't look at those as programs that aren't equivalent, but it just feels like Drinkwitz is not. He didn't feel like a Florida State to me. I think that'd be a great hire. What about Golesh from USF?
I'm not a huge Golesh guy, but honestly, if they fire Norvell, really, I think that might honestly be a mistake if it comes to that point where I thought it was so ridiculous after the Stanford game when I was hearing some FSU media members saying like, "Look, man, I know it sucks to hear, but like it might be wise to wait a year. This is a terrible coaching cycle for FSU. You're typically going to be a top 2 job on the market in any given coaching cycle. You might not even you're probably number 5 this year. 4 or 5. You were Auburn, and then if Ole Miss opens up, there's so many coaching jobs on the market, and you have to pay the money. You can decrease the buyout by another year next year. And I thought that was so silly at first, but now we have James Franklin going to Virginia Tech. Who are these better schools going to get? One's Penn State because they've already fired their coaches. They're a step ahead of FSU. They're actually in probably negotiations with these coaches. Obviously, I mean Virginia Tech is. They're talking to Franklin midseason. So, what are you going to do if you fire Norvell after the season? Because honestly, I don't have faith in this administration to fire him mid-season. And what are you going to do? Like, are you just going to get the scraps left over from all those other schools? I just think they handled this so poorly, and it could be very, very devastating long term for this program.
Yeah, it's look, I'm a Miami fan, so putting the Miami fan hat on, I was petrified of James Franklin going to Florida State. Again, I am a James Franklin fan, have been the longest time. I think he's the man. Now, to your point, timing wise, Florida State does have the number 14 class in the country committed. Guys like Chauncey Kennon from Booker, some talented players. I know you've lost a few guys as well, but you do have a few guys that can play. So maybe the thought is you had, a couple true freshmen that you feel very good about at FSU between Chroma, obviously the Desir twins, then Danzy, who's a redshirt freshman. He's a young player as well, right? Is Danzy a redshirt freshman or a true freshman?
Redshirt.
So you have young players that have played maybe another year of youth movement, so to speak, for Norvell, and see if those guys develop. And if they do, the next coach maybe has a better roster to take over with another year of seeing how it goes. Like I said, the buyout's lower. You get to a better coaching market without a flood of competition. I know Canes Cats mentioned Mark Stoops who you have deep knowledge of? I mean, do you see that being a fit, knowing the both programs pretty well?
Uh, for FSU, like
Or
head
for anybody,
coach.
do you see that working?
No, I mean, like just like knowing, I grew up like three houses, not three houses, but like in the same neighborhood as Stoops. Like we're close with
Oh,
their family. Like
must be nice.
I, not well. You get farther back in the neighborhood, it gets a whole lot nicer. I'll tell you what. Like it's definitely a discrepancy from the entrance to the exit of the neighborhood. But um, no, I went to school with his kids, and like we Stoops, just from every time we've seen him, he's gotten more and more checked out. And you see that in like the press conferences, you see that in everything. And I just kind of get the vibe that he's the longest tenured head coach in the SEC right now. You know, now that Saban's gone. I think he's waited probably like 8 years now at this point, basically ever since that 2018 team with Josh Hines Allen and Benny Snell. He's been begging uh, Iowa to open up. You know, he really wants Iowa to open up. That's his alma mater. That's, I think, where he wants to end his career, but they have the longest tenured coach in the country. So it hasn't happened. And ultimately, I kind of just think like, I certainly don't think he would step down to like DC or a position coach or anything. I really don't think that if he and Kentucky parted ways, he would coach unless it was Iowa. That's kind of my feeling with it. Just I think he wants to maybe, try and revive his image on his way out at UK.
You
And
got a great
if
quarterback.
I yeah, right, absolutely. So I've kind of grown on the idea of Stoops returning next year just because it's so unbelievably horrible financially. Like you have to pay $38 million within 30 days to fire him. So it's a little different, but I don't know. If I'm basically any other team, I probably wouldn't be super intrigued by Stoops as a head coach or any position, anything.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if you're paying these guys and you're saving money that you would, if you, let's say you fire Stoops or for Kentucky, you fire a Norvell if you're FSU, you're eating buyout money. Maybe it makes sense, again, given the market that what we just saw here, the competition. Why don't you spend on the roster as far as getting this recruiting class in the portal, give it one last go, make sure your young guys are playing, right? You don't want those guys sitting on the bench so they transfer for the next coach.
Yeah.
And then either it works or the next coach has some young guys. Again, Kentucky's got Cutter Boley, so you can recruit into the portal there and probably get a better. I mean, Kentucky's not been bad in the portal, I don't think, but you end up being a net loser this year, I think, because you didn't have a quarterback,
100%.
right? You lose
Yeah,
receivers
I
that you needed.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was fine to part ways with Barry on Brown, but I would certainly love to see the Cutter Boley to Dane Key connection this year. Neither of them have been having strong seasons for Nebraska and LSU. So just throwing that out there. But UK does have a couple of good weapons at receiver and tight end, but they, much like FSU, will have to replace all five starting offensive linemen next year. And unlike FSU, they actually have the pitch of, hey, do you want to come block for this redshirt sophomore who really finished off last year hot and is a guy that we think we can build around and might potentially extend this head coach's tenure here for a couple of years. And that's a better pitch, I think, than FSU saying, "Hey, like we're gonna either we're gonna have Sperry, or we're gonna bring in a portal quarterback, or we're gonna have Tommy, who honestly probably isn't super fun to block for, you know? You gotta extend the plays. You gotta block for like 5 seconds on a lot of plays because he's running around in the backfield. So yeah, it's a good pitch, I think. I think you have Cutter Boley at quarterback. If you can bring him back, that's gonna be a big deal for Stoops, to be honest. I think that should be his number one selling point to the administration. But ultimately, I don't know what FSU does from this point. I've fully dismissed the Stoops FSU. I get a healthy amount of fans in my comment section suggesting Stoops to FSU, but I'm good.
I'll say this. Now, it was funny. We're talking about Kentucky. We're talking about FSU. Now, bringing it all the way back. It shows you how connected, first of all these things are,
I
these
know.
coaching searches. But bringing it back to Virginia Tech, I'm going to make a wild prediction. I could be dead wrong, but I truly believe this. I think in 3 years, Virginia Tech will be better than Penn State, if not earlier. And the
Ooh.
reason I believe that is because you look at that graphic that came up about some of these schools that have lost their coaches midstream, whether it was Florida, LSU, Penn State. Which school had the most decommitments? By
Right.
far, exponentially, it was Penn State, because that's how integral Franklin is to the recruiting part. He's also, in my view, an elite evaluator. Again, I'll use the NFL draft as the evidence of that, and I'll use the fact that they weren't always getting top 5 classes at Penn State. In fact, they rarely did. He got good recruits, but it was the evaluation that set him apart. Getting the Abdul Carter was like, what, a low 4, and he ends up being this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they did. I'll give you an example and a player of the kind of guy that I think goes to Virginia Tech and becomes a star. Tyler Warren is not from Pennsylvania.
Tyler Warren was he's from Virginia. He was a 3-star.
He was a 3-star quarterback basketball player. I mean, like all these guys that we always talk about on this show, because the same things repeat with these players. Multi-sport, multi-position, underrated traits guy, had a verified 4.7. We know the story of Tyler Warren.
Olu Fashanu was barely a 4-star out of Washington, D.C. So Joey Porter Jr., very low 4-star. Brenton Strange, low 4-star. So it's not even just the recruiting at a place where you're not in Florida. You know, you don't have like the hotbed of skill position guys and, you know, some of the better athletes, but it's these low 4-star guys, and he's just churning out first-round picks with them.
And Tyler Warren was a 3-star, high 3-star.
Yeah, right.
And he's from Mechanicsville, Virginia, which is east of Blacksburg. So this area is hot. Another one to watch here. If I'm James Franklin, you know who I hope gets fired? I mean, I don't know, they might have a relationship. I don't know if there's like, I don't mean it like that, but in terms of like from a pure cutthroat football perspective, I know he just got the vote of confidence, but maybe that's a short-lived vote of confidence. I mean, Mike Loxley, because Mike Loxley has been able at right there near DC in Chevy Chase for Maryland. He's acquired an elite quarterback, elite quarterback talent, a young guy, a freshman that would go anywhere in the country and be a hot commodity, right? Obviously, he's got a long way to go in terms of college football. One of the best, which you highlighted on an earlier show of Group Chat, one of the best pair of young edge rushers in the country. You got Zion Ely committed. These are all local guys to Maryland, but Maryland, Virginia Tech, I mean, I've made that drive from DC to Blacksburg. It's not very far. So if Franklin can maybe squeeze out Maryland from that area, it's going to undo what Loxley's done, and Loxley's on the hot seat, so he's holding on for dear life. Take that area back, cut into some of the areas that he went to with Penn State. Kainscat mentioned Theo Johnson's from Canada, catching touchdowns for the Giants right now. So, I mean, you can go there too and get some of those type of guys. I could see this program being extremely talent rich, and Penn State, yes, Joe Paterno, you go back to all those old teams. That's fine. Penn State was not exactly a world beater for a long, long time. Virginia Tech, in fact, was a better program than Penn State for big stretches of the early 2000s, really beyond that.
Absolutely.
So that's not unheard of. I think Franklin kind of tilted those expectations himself and was the victim of it ultimately. But I could see, we'll see who Penn State hires. I would go probably like a Matt Campbell if I was them personally. But Drinkwitz would be a heck of a hire as well. Another great evaluator, a guy who built a great program with NFL players all over the place. But depending who they hire, I could see Virginia Tech elevating. So shout out to them for doing what they need to do, and my condolences to the FSU fans who probably were already kind of scanning the draft history of Penn State and thinking there'd be some of their guys in the future. So,
yeah, I just closed that tab. So
let's get a new one open for you.